This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you an exclusive interview with Ms Shobhna Kamineni, Executive Vice Chairperson of Apollo Hospitals on Modi at 20 Dreams Meet Delivery. The interviewer is Himani Rana, AIR Correspondent.
It's a special honor and privilege to have with us Ms Shobhna Kamineni, the Executive Vice Chairperson of Apollo Hospitals. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you for inviting me on to All India Radio.
An active member of the Confederation of Indian Industry, Ms Kamineni was its president from 2017 to 2018, the first woman to hold this position. She is also a member of the National Foundation for Corporate Governance Trust under Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. Among her many accolades, World Economic Forum conferred upon her the award of Business Women of the Decade in recognition of her works in healthcare and empowerment of women. She has been a vocal supporter of women's rights across various dimensions, right from health to education to entrepreneurship. Today we are having a discussion on Ms Kamineni's contribution to the book Modi at 20 Dreams Meet Delivery. The specific chapter in the discussion covers the topic New Grammar of Women Empowerment. To start with the discussion, ma'am, recently in the 15th presidential elections, Draupadi Murmu, belonging to a tribal community in Odisha, has become the first Adivasi woman to occupy the country's top constitutional post. How do you see this development with regard to the rising stature of Indian women?
There's so much to celebrate. To have a woman as Draupadi Murmu in particular as our 15th president. And I think that I would actually be doing her injustice to say that she represents the diversity factor as the second woman president. In fact, she holds many unique distinctions that India should celebrate, that we've opened up our minds and our hearts. The first person from a tribal community, the first one who is really economically backward, the circumstances from which she came, and then of course the fact that she's a woman and belonging to the teachers community. I think the entire package really should make us proud and set up in shining lights that this government is definitely about inclusion.
Talking about first, ma'am, you have been the first woman president of the Confederation of Indian Industry since its inception in 1895. So how do you feel that women are faring today with regard to the glass ceiling?
I think world over, it's definitely a challenge. There was a report that said that women CEOs get fired faster than men CEOs, and this is global. In India in particular, I do think that there have been quite a few women in the banking sector, in the other financial services, in IT. We definitely have had many good women leaders and CEOs who have been in organization building. But having said that, I would not be honest if I didn't say that in the world ranking and inclusion, we are among the last. In the participation of women in our workforce has been dropping, and it's third, I think, in the world list. That this is a particular problem that all of us together have to address. Just imagine, with 50% of the population and only 14% of that 50% who are in the working age group or eligible actually are employed in the workforce. Definitely COVID was tough for women. I mean, you would have thought working from home would make it easy. But no, these were the vulnerable ones that lost hotel jobs, that lost cleaning jobs, that lost many of these vulnerable jobs. So I think today we are in a position that we really have to work exponentially to make this a better place for women.
True, ma'am. In fact, in the annual Gender Gap Report of 2022 by World Economic Forum, India has ranked 135 out of the 146 countries. So we see that the biggest challenge which we are facing in providing equal rights to women is the need to change orthodox entrenched attitudes. So what role has our present government under the leadership of PM Modi played in addressing this critical area of concern?
No time in history do I think that a government has been focused on trying to uplift women. And I think that even in the book when I said that they've shifted the thought process from a women's development to women-led development, whether it's eliminating female feticide, education of the girl child, functioning toilets in schools for girls, free cooking gas, good health, financial empowerment, or entrepreneurship. At the highest level, India is now standing firmly by her daughters, supporting and empowering them. And in every step, I think that even in Prime Minister Modi started his political career as Chief Minister of Gujarat, he worked on the aspect of creating gender equality and did so much in the state of Gujarat. His first term as Prime Minister, again, that agenda was clearly highlighted. So the government is definitely focused on making sure that this large 50% of the population will at some point catch up.
Now coming to women empowerment, an important aspect of women empowerment is financial independence. PM Modi has emphasized that women power would drive growth. In this regard, how has the Modi government ensured that women get access to formal credit system and gain financial independence?
Since 2014, 23 crore bank accounts have been opened for women. And this really gave them financial independence because it gave them access to financial credit and other services in the banking system. The Jan Dhan Yojana was designed by this government to financially secure the future of women, and over 55% of the accounts held in here are for women. And I think this is one of the greatest steps, that when you give them financial empowerment, you actually allow women to become influencers, to take decisions, and they will take right decisions in terms of education for their children, especially the girl children. They will take decisions on how livelihoods get created. Another one is hugely noteworthy, Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. About 70% of the beneficiaries are women, and most of them belong to the marginalized sections. The scheme has helped generate 69 lakh additional employment positions for women in the 3 years between 2015 to 2018. So like that, whether it's startup programs to boost entrepreneurship, the government has these flagship programs that they've been pushing financial inclusion of women.
Ma'am, you come from a healthcare background. So for the benefit of our listeners, can you tell what is the 360-degree approach to women's health and how is it different from past approaches?
Everyone knows that healthy women are the pivot to healthy economies because they're the true influencers at home. But in the past, women's health only received attention during pregnancy and immediately after delivery. But from 2014, this 360-degree approach to address all their health, so it's not just maternal health, nutrition, but menstrual health, sanitation, clean air in the kitchen, and access to basic sanitation, creating bathrooms for women. These are all part of your health agenda. But more than that, I think that the Ayushman Mahila and part of the Ayushman Bharat that address non-communicable diseases, because women are as prone to cancers, to heart disease, and all the other non-communicable and communicable. So where do they go? By having this insurance net that actually covers the entire family. So we improved in female mortality. Just see what we've done with COVID. It was hugely equal opportunity. Men, women, old, young, covered everybody. This is the 360-degree to approach.
Ma'am, you've talked about COVID. So the Indian healthcare system has seen one of the worst times with the COVID-19 pandemic. So how do you see the response of this government in expanding healthcare infrastructure and boosting public-private collaboration in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic?
I think that was a stunning success. That, when you're all in it together, because this was a thing of such immense magnitude, the healthcare workers across the country, nobody really said, I belong to the government or I belong to the private sector. This was the time when everyone opened their doors. No one was asking any questions when it came to treatment. If we had the beds, if we had the oxygen, and we made sure we had them. And I think that this was one of the most concentrated collaborations that really took us through some of the toughest times in the pandemic. But you can never talk about India's COVID fight without talking about fantastic interventions of the vaccines. Not only did the government push and help the private sector that created all the vaccines and manufactured them at scale, but India today has delivered 2 billion vaccines. And I think that there's no country that can talk about this kind of scale. So definitely we are an example in many, many places of how this pandemic was managed. And I'm very cognizant that we lost lives, but I think that if it was not for the way that the government acted at every front, the loss of life would have been inconsolable.
So, ma'am, moving on the legal front. So, regarding changes made by the present government in the Maternity Benefits Amendment Act, so where the fully paid maternity leave duration of it has been raised from 12 weeks to 26 weeks. So, how do you see that this will help women in balancing their career and family?
I'm fully supportive. I think that at the beginning there was all kinds of knee-jerk when this was, I remember I was very actively in CII when this was introduced, and a lot of companies were hesitating even more to recruit young women, and for a time that the gender bias kind of dipped. But then people realized the importance of having a loyal and trained, because the attrition of women is far less, and this is an investment that you're making. So I don't think when you look at just 26 weeks in a woman's entire career with you, it's really insignificant. And people now have become more mature and they've realized that this is a time that a woman needs to recuperate. And I think from a women's perspective, so many of them had dropped off from the workforce. And these are brilliant women who had to make tough choices. And now they don't have to make that choice. It's become much better. 26 weeks is something, and I think that maybe we should look at it more holistically, larger, and why not include men also? Because now you see men are equally stepping up in parenthood. So I think that should be the next step.
Ma'am, an important area which is connected to this is the women reproductive rights, especially in the light of recent developments which we are seeing in the United States, where the US Supreme Court has given more power to states to restrict abortion. So, what is the direction in which our country is moving as reflected by the changes made in the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 2021?
Repealing Roe and Wade was shocking not just to women in the US, but it just sent ripples across the world of horror that we could be so regressive. That was one of the, among many times, I'm happy to be an Indian with this, because look at this. On 22nd July, the Indian Supreme Court expanded the scope of Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act to include unmarried women and allowed women to abort a 24-week pregnancy arising out of a consensual relationship. And it's important to note that there are also medical situations where pregnancy termination in the form of an abortion is the only way that a woman can preserve her health or her life. So I think this freedom of choice, because that's fundamentally in our institution. So the fact that it was written and interpreted by our Supreme Court is highly progressive.
Ma'am, talking about Sustainable Development Goal, the 2030 Agenda, it is said that Sustainable Development Goal of gender equality encompasses, it facilitates the realization of other goals. So how are these goals interlinked?
There's so much rhetoric that goes on. Women hold up half the sky, these are SDGs, we have to do it. And this is something like almost like climate change, that you know there's a disaster in the offing, but you don't want to change your own behaviors to make it happen until you're pushed to the brink and you fall off that cliff. We are coming to the point, that if we don't do whatever we've been doing for women and a lot more, if India is going to be a $5 trillion economy, where is it going to come from unless that women step up, that you move 14% to 22%? That itself will add $1 trillion. So these are the things, and throughout, whether it's education, whether it's the way that we look at the financial inclusion that this government has done. So I believe that everything is in the right place, right time, the mindset is there, but the actual action behind it, just like climate change, I think that SDGs is such a bandied about word. We just need now to move the needle and to show progress.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable inputs. It was a delight talking to you, and we really hope that women in India, especially young girls, will benefit from your views and discussion.
Thank you.
You were listening to an exclusive interview with Ms Shobhna Kamineni, Executive Vice Chairperson of Apollo Hospitals on Modi at 20 Dreams Meet Delivery. The interviewer was Himani Rana, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsttalks@gmail.com.